I'm Maggie, 26 years old, and I just spent my entire Christmas bonus on a last-minute flight that probably costs more than most people's rent. The departure gate at Denver International buzzes with holiday chaos while I clutch my boarding pass like it's made of gold. Because honestly, at these prices, it might as well be. 3 days ago, I had zero plans for Christmas. I was perfectly content to spend the holiday in my cozy apartment, binge-watching Netflix with takeout Chinese food and absolutely no family drama. But then guilt hit me like a freight train. When was the last time I went home? When was the last time I made an effort? Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt guilty about being the absent family member. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. See, I'm what you might call the family success story. Straight A's through high school, full scholarship to engineering school, landed a killer job with a consulting firm right after graduation. While my younger sister April was still figuring out what major looked easiest, I was already climbing the corporate ladder in another state. Denver became home because that's where opportunity lived. My family back in California consists of my dad Mike, who built a real estate empire from nothing and has the bank account to prove it. Then there's my mom Scarlett and sister April, who live in the mansion dad left them when he and mom divorced 5 years ago. The arrangement was generous, to say the least. Beautiful house, monthly allowance, credit cards, staff to clean and cook. Dad made sure his daughters would never want for anything, the key word there being daughters, plural, though only one of us actually stuck around to enjoy the benefits. I pull out my phone and scroll through our family group chat. The last message is from 3 weeks ago, when April posted photos of her new designer purse. Mom responded with heart eye emojis. My contribution? Silence. Always silence. My work schedule is insane. 60-hour weeks are normal. 80-hour weeks happen more often than I'd like to admit. I tell myself that's why I don't visit. That's why I miss birthdays and holidays and random Sunday dinners. The truth is messier and involves a persistent feeling that I don't quite fit anymore. But Christmas is different, right? Christmas is when families come together and remember what matters. At least that's what I told myself while maxing out my credit card for this impromptu trip home. The flight attendant announces boarding for my gate, and my stomach does this weird flutter thing. Part excitement, part terror. I haven't told them I'm coming. I wanted it to be a surprise. The good kind of surprise, not the kind where you realize you've made a terrible mistake. As I settle into my middle seat between a crying baby and a man who apparently bathed in cologne, I fire off a quick text to the family group chat. Surprise! Just boarded a flight home. Should land around 8 p.m. Can someone pick me up at LAX? I switch my phone to airplane mode before I can see any responses. Sometimes the anticipation is better than reality, and I want to hold on to that feeling just a little longer. Besides, what could go wrong? It's Christmas Eve, it's family, and I'm finally making the effort they've always wanted me to make. The plane pushes back from the gate, and through the small window, I watch Denver disappear below clouds. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm doing something right. Something that might bridge the gap that's been growing between me and the people who raised me. I close my eyes and picture their faces when I walk through that familiar front door. Dad would be proud that I prioritized family over work for once. Mom would probably cry happy tears. April might actually put down her phone long enough to give me a real hug. Christmas miracles, right? That's what this trip is going to be. The plane touches down at LAX precisely at 8:03 p.m., just 3 minutes behind schedule. I've been awake for 14 hours straight, survived turbulence over the Rockies, and my lower back feels permanently curved from that middle seat. But there's something magical about coming home for Christmas. Even when home is a city where you need GPS to find your old neighborhood, Los Angeles at night still takes my breath away. Endless strings of lights stretching in every direction, palm trees silhouetted against purple sky, the promise of warm weather even in December. Denver winters are brutal, and I'd forgotten how good it feels to step off a plane without immediately needing 3 layers of clothing. I navigate through LAX's maze of terminals, following signs toward baggage claim. My phone stays in airplane mode because I want to surprise them properly. The plan is simple. Collect my suitcase, call an Uber, show up at the front door with my biggest smile, and watch their faces light up with joy. The baggage claim carousel takes forever, as always. I lean against a pillar, watching families reunite with theatrical enthusiasm. Grandparents clutching grandchildren, couples running toward each other like they're in a romantic movie, parents trying to corral excited kids who've been sitting still for hours. I wonder if anyone will be that excited to see me. Finally, my navy blue suitcase appears, and I wrestle it off the carousel with the determination of someone who refuses to admit they overpacked. The Uber pickup area is a zoo of honking cars and confused travelers, But eventually, I spot my driver and collapse into the back seat. Long flight? Asks Marcus, my driver, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Worth it, I say, giving him my parents' address. Going home for Christmas. That's nice. Family's important, especially during the holidays. I nod, watching familiar freeways blur past the window. The 405 is a parking lot as usual, but I don't mind. The anticipation builds with each passing mile. I imagine walking through that front door, seeing their shocked faces transform into pure happiness. Maybe Mom will make her famous hot chocolate. Maybe April and I can stay up late talking like we used to when we were kids. My phone buzzes in my purse, but I ignore it. Whatever work emergency is happening in Denver can wait. This is family time. The drive takes 45 minutes through Christmas Eve traffic. When we finally turn onto my parents' street, I feel that familiar tightness in my chest. The houses here cost more than most people make in a lifetime, each one a testament to California real estate insanity and my father's business acumen. The mansion comes into view, and my breath catches. It's decorated for Christmas with the kind of professional display that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Thousands of lights outline every architectural detail. Wreaths hang from each window, and a massive tree glows through the front bay window. It looks like a magazine cover. It looks like home. Beautiful house, Marcus comments as we pull into the circular driveway. My dad has good taste, I say, already reaching for my wallet. I tip him generously because it's Christmas and because I'm feeling generous about everything right now. My suitcase wheels click against the stone driveway as I approach the front door. The familiar scent of jasmine from Mom's garden mingles with the crisp December air. I reach for my phone to turn off airplane mode and let them know I'm here. The screen lights up with a series of notifications, and my stomach drops as I read the messages in our family group chat. Mom, cancel that idea. April, there's no room for one more person here. Wait, that can't be right. I read them again, my hands starting to shake. The first message, sent 20 minutes after my boarding announcement. Cancel that idea. The second, from April 10 minutes later. There's no room for one more person here. I stand frozen on the doorstep, suitcase handle still gripped in my hand, staring at those words. The Christmas lights blur as my eyes fill with tears I refuse to let fall. I stand there for what feels like an hour, but is probably only minutes, reading those messages over and over until the words lose all meaning. Cancel that idea. No room for one more person. The family home that's been my safety net since childhood suddenly feels like a fortress with the drawbridge pulled up. My hands are shaking now, and not from the California December air. I scroll up through the chat history, looking for some context I might have missed. But there's nothing. Just April's designer purse photos from last week and radio silence before that. The front door looms before me like a challenge. I could ring the doorbell right now and force them to deal with my presence. I could pretend I never saw the messages and play innocent. But the humiliation burns too hot in my throat for games. No room for one more person, in a house with 7 bedrooms. I grab my suitcase handle and turn away from the door, my wheels clicking loudly against the stone as I march back down the driveway. The Uber is long gone, so I pull up the app with fingers that won't quite cooperate. The next available ride is 12 minutes away. 12 minutes to stand here in the driveway of my childhood home, officially uninvited for Christmas. But wait, there's another option. One that doesn't involve crawling back to Denver with my tail between my legs or spending Christmas Eve in some depressing airport hotel. Dad's house is only 20 minutes away. When my parents divorced, Dad moved into a sleek, modern place in the hills. He claimed he wanted something smaller, more manageable, but the truth is he wanted distance from the memories. I've only visited twice since he moved, both times feeling guilty for not making more effort to see him. Now suddenly, Dad feels like my only lifeline. The Uber driver who picks me up is chatty, asking about my Christmas plans and commenting on the beautiful decorations in the neighborhood. I give him Dad's address and stare out the window, watching million-dollar houses blur past while I craft my explanation. Hi, Dad. Surprise. Mom and April don't want me home for Christmas, so I thought I'd crash with you instead. No. Too pathetic. I wanted to spend Christmas with you this year. You know, just the two of us. Better, but he'll see right through it. The truth is, Dad and I have grown apart since the divorce. Not from any anger or resentment, but from the simple physics of distance. I moved to Denver. He buried himself in work. We exchanged birthday calls and awkward holiday texts, but somehow never managed to rebuild the close relationship we'd had when I was younger. Maybe this is our chance. Dad's house sits at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows. Even in the dark, it looks expensive and slightly cold. No Christmas decorations, I notice. No warm glow of holiday lights. I pay the driver and stand at Dad's front door, suddenly nervous for entirely different reasons. What if he's not even home? What if he has plans I'm about to ruin? What if he's just as unwelcoming as Mom in April? The doorbell echoes through what sounds like a cavernous space. After a moment, I hear footsteps, and then the door opens to reveal my father. Mike Patterson still looks like the successful businessman who built an empire from scratch. Silver hair perfectly styled even at 8 p.m., shirt that probably costs more than my weekly grocery budget, posture that radiates confidence. But there's something different in his eyes tonight, something that looks almost like loneliness. Maggie? His face transforms with genuine surprise and what might be relief. What are you doing here? I thought you were spending Christmas in Denver. Change of plans, I say, trying for casual and probably failing. Surprise! He steps back immediately, gesturing me inside. Come in, come in. God, it's good to see you. When was the last time you were here? 6 months ago? 8? Too long, I admit. And for the first time since reading those texts, I feel something other than rejection. Dad takes my suitcase without being asked and leads me into his living room. The space is beautiful but sterile, like a magazine spread where no one actually lives. No family photos, no personal touches, just expensive furniture arranged by someone with impeccable taste and no emotional attachments. Are you hungry? I was just having a sad dinner for one, but I can order something. There's a great Thai place that delivers. And there it is. The loneliness I glimpsed at the door, now spoken out loud. Thai sounds perfect, I say. Dad, are you spending Christmas alone? He settles into the chair across from me, suddenly looking older than his 58 years. The holidays are harder since the divorce. Your mother gets you in April, and I get to work late and pretend it doesn't matter. Something in my chest cracks open. All this time, I've been feeling guilty about not coming home for Christmas. But which home was I supposed to choose? Well, I say, settling back into Dad's impossibly comfortable couch. Looks like this year we're both refugees from traditional Christmas plans. Dad raises an eyebrow. Refugees? That sounds like there's a story behind your surprise visit. I hesitate. Part of me wants to protect him from the family drama, to pretend I chose to come here because I genuinely wanted to spend time with him. But looking at his lonely Thai dinner for one, and this beautiful, sterile house without a single Christmas decoration, honesty feels more important than protecting anyone's feelings. I flew in to surprise Mom in April, I say slowly. Spent my entire Christmas bonus on a last-minute ticket. But apparently, there's no room for me at the inn. Dad's expression darkens. What do you mean, no room? I pull out my phone and show him the messages. His face cycles through confusion, disbelief, and something that looks dangerously close to rage. Are you kidding me? He reads the messages again, his voice getting quieter in that way that means he's truly angry. In a house with 7 bedrooms, there's no room for my daughter? Hey, it's okay, I say quickly. Their loss, right? This way I get to spend Christmas with you. But Dad is pacing now, his business demeanor replaced by parental fury. This is not okay, Maggie. You flew across the country to be with family for Christmas. You made an effort that none of us have seen from you in years, and they just dismissed you like you don't matter. I watch him pace, and something warm spreads through my chest. When was the last time someone was this angry on my behalf? When was the last time I felt like someone was truly in my corner? You know what? Dad stops pacing and looks at me with sudden determination. Their loss is absolutely right. We're going to have the best Christmas Eve in the history of Christmas Eves. And somehow, he makes it happen. We order way too much Thai food and eat it straight from the containers while sitting on his pristine white couch. Dad finds a bottle of expensive wine that he's been saving for a special occasion, and we drink it while I tell him about my work in Denver, about the projects I'm managing and the promotion I'm gunning for. He tells me about his business, about the new developments he's planning and the retirement he's been considering. We talk for hours like we haven't talked in years, maybe ever. Without Mom's constant interruptions or April's dramatic attention-seeking, Dad and I can actually have a conversation. I've missed this, he says around 11 p.m., refilling our wine glasses. I've missed you. I've missed you too, I admit. I didn't realize how much until tonight. Why don't you visit more often? And don't give me the busy work excuse. I know you're successful, but I also know you can take a long weekend when you want to. I consider my usual deflections, but the wine and his genuine attention have lowered my defenses. Honestly, I never felt like I fit anymore. April is the daughter who stayed close, who needs help with everything, who makes Mom feel needed. I'm the daughter who moved away and figured things out on her own. Sometimes it feels like there's no role for me in the family anymore. Dad sets down his wine glass and looks at me seriously. Maggie, you are the child I'm most proud of. Do you know that? You took the opportunities I gave you and ran with them. You built a life based on your own merit, your own hard work. April. April has been handed everything and learned nothing. This is probably the most honest conversation we've ever had about the family dynamics. The wine helps, But more than that, the absence of Mom and April creates space for truth. I should have made more effort with you after the divorce, Dad continues. I should have called more, visited Denver, made sure you knew that just because you're independent doesn't mean you're not wanted. Dad? No. Let me finish. You flying here tonight even after they rejected you? That took courage. It took love. And I'm grateful you chose to come here instead of just flying home to Denver. At midnight, Dad insists on making us hot chocolate the fancy way, with real chocolate and cream, while we sit by his gas fireplace watching old Christmas movies. It feels more like Christmas than any holiday I've had in years. You know what I realized tonight? I say during a commercial break. What's that? I've been trying so hard to earn my place in a family that I forgot I already had a place, just not where I thought I did. Dad smiles, and for the first time since the divorce, he looks truly happy. You always have a place with me, Maggie. You don't have to earn it. It's yours by birthright. As I finally head to the guest bedroom around 2 a.m., I can't help but think that maybe getting rejected by Mom and April was the best thing that could have happened. Maybe I needed to stop trying to force my way into their world and start appreciating the people who actually want me in theirs. Tomorrow is Christmas Day, and for the first time in years, I'm actually excited about it. I wake up Christmas morning to the smell of actual bacon cooking, not the fancy turkey bacon Mom always insisted on because it was healthier. Dad's making real breakfast in his pristine kitchen, humming something that might be Jingle Bells off-key. "Merry Christmas, refugee," he says when I shuffle into the kitchen wearing his old UCLA sweatshirt that I found in the guest room. "Sleep okay?" "Like a baby who just spent her Christmas bonus on emotional therapy," I say, accepting the coffee he hands me. "This smells amazing. When did you learn to cook?" "YouTube University," he grins. Turns out there are entire channels dedicated to teaching divorced dads how to make edible food. Who knew? We eat breakfast watching the sun come up over the hills, and it strikes me how peaceful this feels. No rushing around trying to manage April's mood swings or navigate Mom's passive-aggressive comments about my weight, my job, my lack of a boyfriend, my general failure to provide grandchildren on their preferred timeline. Just Dad and me, eating bacon and eggs like normal people on Christmas morning. "So," I say, cutting into my perfectly cooked eggs, "tell me more about this retirement you're considering." Dad's expression shifts, becoming more serious. "I've been thinking about it a lot lately. The business runs itself now, I've got great people in place, and honestly, I'm tired, Maggie. I'm tired of being alone in that big office, making decisions that mostly just make me richer when I already have more money than I know what to do with." "You're not that old." "Dad, what would you do with yourself if you retired?" "Travel, maybe. I always wanted to see Europe, but your mother preferred shopping trips to New York. Learn to paint. Spend time with my daughter who lives in Denver." He looks at me pointedly. "If she'd let me." Something warm unfurls in my chest. "I'd like that. You could come visit, see my apartment, meet my friends. I could show you around the mountains." "I'd like that too." He pauses, then sets down his fork. "Maggie, can I ask you something?" "Shoot. Last night, when you showed me those messages from your mother and April, that's not the first time they've made you feel unwelcome, is it?" The directness of the question catches me off guard. I've spent years making excuses for their behavior, explaining away the small slights and casual dismissals as family dynamics or personality differences. "No," I admit quietly. "It's not the first time. Tell me." So I do. Over the course of the next hour, while we drink coffee and pick at leftover bacon, I tell him things I've never said out loud before. About how April gets mad when I visit because it means she has to share Mom's attention. About how Mom always finds ways to criticize my choices while praising April's complete lack of direction. About how I stopped calling as much because the conversations always left me feeling drained and inadequate. April threw a fit last Thanksgiving because I brought homemade pie instead of buying one from that expensive bakery Mom likes, I say. She said I was showing off and trying to make her look bad. Mom agreed with her. Dad's jaw tightens. "You brought homemade pie because you wanted to contribute something personal and meaningful." "Exactly. But somehow that was wrong too. Either I don't contribute enough or I'm trying too hard. There's no winning." "And the money?" Dad asks quietly. "What money?" "Maggie, I give your mother a very generous monthly allowance. I pay for that house, the utilities, the maintenance, the housekeeper. I pay April's credit card bills, her car payment, her insurance. I've been doing it for 5 years since the divorce." I stare at him. "I didn't know about April's bills." "Of course you didn't. Because you've never asked me for anything. You got a job, found an apartment, built a life. You send birthday cards and Christmas presents. You take care of yourself." He leans back in his chair. "Do you know how much money I've spent on you in the past 5 years?" I shake my head. "Nothing. $0. Not because I wouldn't give it to you, but because you never asked. You never needed it. This hits me like a physical blow. All this time, I thought I was being responsible and independent. I thought I was making Dad proud by not being a financial burden. But April has been living off Dad's generosity while treating me like the outsider who doesn't deserve a place at the family table. That changes things, I say slowly. It changes everything, Dad agrees. Your mother and April have gotten comfortable living off my guilt about the divorce. They've built their entire lifestyle around my money, and they've convinced themselves they deserve it. What are you saying? Dad looks at me with an expression I recognize from his business days. It's the look he gets when he's made a decision, and nothing will change his mind. I'm saying it's time for a reality check, and I think you should be there to see it. Dad stares out the kitchen window toward the hills, his coffee cup forgotten in his hands. I can practically see the gears turning in his head, and after 30 years of knowing him, I recognize this expression. It's the same look he had when he decided to start his own company, when he made the call to divorce Mom, when he chooses action over acceptance. They need to understand consequences, he says finally. Your mother and April have been living in a bubble where my money flows freely and your absence is treated as insignificant. Both things need to change. Dad, you don't have to do anything drastic because of what happened to me. This isn't just about last night, Maggie. He turns to face me, his expression serious. This is about 5 years of enabling behavior that's gotten worse, not better. Do you know what April spent on her credit cards last month? I shake my head. $8,000. On clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, dinners at restaurants that cost more than most people's rent. Your mother spent $4,000. Mostly on redecorating the house for the 3rd time in 2 years. My mouth falls open. Dad, that's $12,000 in 1 month. On top of the mortgage, utilities, and household expenses I already cover. On top of the monthly allowance I give them both. He sits back down across from me. And when my older daughter flies across the country to spend Christmas with her family, they tell her there's no room. When he puts it like that, the situation becomes crystal clear. I've been feeling guilty about my absence while they've been taking advantage of his presence. I've been struggling to fit into their world while they've been living comfortably in his. What are you thinking? I ask, though I suspect I already know. I'm thinking it's time for them to learn the difference between generosity and entitlement. Dad pulls out his phone and scrolls through his contacts. I'm calling my friend Robert. He's a realtor. You're going to sell the house? I'm going to give them an option. Dad's smile is sharp. They can start acting like family to both my daughters, or they can start acting like tenants. He makes the call while I sit there processing this turn of events. 6 hours ago, I was standing on their doorstep feeling rejected and unwanted. Now Dad is planning what amounts to a financial intervention with me as his accomplice. Robert? It's Mike Patterson. Merry Christmas to you too. Listen, I need a favor. Dad walks to the window while he talks. I need you to come take a look at the house on Maple Grove this morning. Yes, today. I know it's Christmas, but this is important. No emergency. Just time for a long overdue conversation with my ex-wife. He hangs up and looks at me with satisfaction. Robert owes me a favor from when I helped him buy his first investment property. He'll be there in an hour with paperwork and photos. Dad, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no taking it back. Maggie, look at me. He sits down and takes my hands. I spent 5 years feeling guilty about breaking up our family. I've been trying to buy their forgiveness and your mother's approval with money and houses and unlimited credit cards. But you know what I realized last night? What? I didn't break up our family. Our family was already broken. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. He squeezes my hands. You're my daughter too. You're my daughter who works 60-hour weeks and pays her own rent and flies across the country to surprise people who don't appreciate the effort. You deserve better from them. And they deserve to understand what it costs to treat you poorly. I feel tears prick at my eyes. But they're not sad tears. They're relief tears. For the first time in years, someone is fighting for me instead of asking me to fight for my place. Besides, Dad continues, Dad, this isn't about punishment. It's about reality. They're grown adults who've been living like teenagers with unlimited allowances. Maybe it's time they learn to budget. What exactly are you planning? Dad grins, and I see a flash of the businessman who built an empire from nothing. We're going to give them a Christmas gift they'll never forget. The gift of perspective. He explains his plan while we clean up breakfast dishes. It's simple, direct, and absolutely brilliant. It's also probably going to cause an explosion that will be heard from here to Denver. Are you ready to be seen as the villain in this story? Dad asks. Because that's how they're going to frame it. You came home for Christmas and poisoned their father against them. Let them think what they want, I say, surprising myself with how calm I sound. I'm done trying to manage their emotions for them. Good girl. Dad checks his watch. Robert should be here soon, and then we'll head over to deliver their Christmas surprise. As I go to get dressed, I catch sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. Yesterday's humiliated daughter is gone. In her place stands someone who looks confident, maybe even slightly dangerous. Someone who's finally done being the family doormat. Mom and April asked for space. They're about to get more space than they ever imagined. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family that made you question your worth? Drop a comment and let me know. You're going to want to see what happens when we show up at their door. Robert arrives at Dad's house looking like a man who'd rather be home with his family eating leftover ham, but owes too many favors to say no. He's carrying a briefcase and wearing the kind of smile that real estate agents perfect for difficult situations. Mike, you sure about this timing? He asks, shaking Dad's hand. Christmas morning is usually reserved for family bonding, not family warfare. Trust me, Dad says. This is exactly the right timing. Robert's been in the business long enough to recognize family drama when he sees it. He doesn't ask questions, just nods and gets down to business. Within 20 minutes, he's got his camera out and is loading professional-grade for sale signs into his truck. The market's hot right now, he tells us. House like that, in that neighborhood? We could have offers within a week. Perfect, Dad says with the kind of satisfaction usually reserved for successful business deals. I'm starting to feel nervous butterflies as we drive toward the house. The last time I was there, I stood rejected on the doorstep like some kind of Christmas charity case. Now I'm returning as part of what amounts to a financial coup. The contrast is not lost on me. You okay? Dad asks, glancing at me as we turn onto Maple Grove Drive. Just wondering if there's any chance this goes smoothly, I say. Zero chance, he replies cheerfully. But sometimes smooth isn't the goal. Sometimes the goal is clarity. The house looks different in daylight. Still impressive, still beautifully decorated, but somehow smaller now that I understand the real cost of maintaining it. Those professional Christmas decorations probably cost more than I spend on groceries in 3 months. Robert parks behind us and immediately starts unloading his signs. The sight of him hammering the first for sale post into the pristine front lawn feels surreal, like watching someone plant a flag on conquered territory. Remember, Dad says as we walk toward the front door, we're here to wish them Merry Christmas and deliver some news. Stay calm, stay united, and let me do most of the talking. Got it. I take a deep breath. Though I reserve the right to respond if they start attacking my character. Fair enough. Dad rings the doorbell like he hasn't lived here for 5 years. We can hear movement inside, multiple voices, and then footsteps approaching. The door opens and Mom appears in her Christmas morning silk pajamas, coffee cup in hand, probably expecting a neighbor or delivery driver. Instead, she finds her ex-husband and rejected daughter standing on her doorstep, while a realtor hammers for sale signs into her front yard. The coffee cup slips from her hand and shatters against the marble entryway floor. Mike? Her voice comes out as barely a whisper. What are you doing here? Merry Christmas, Scarlett, Dad says with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. I came to spend the morning with both my daughters. May we come in? Mom's eyes dart between Dad, me, and Robert, setting up what's clearly professional real estate signage. Her face cycles through confusion, shock, and growing alarm. I don't understand, she starts. Mom? April's voice calls from somewhere deeper in the house. Who's at the door? Tell them we're not buying anything. Dad steps past Mom into the foyer without waiting for an invitation. It's his house. After all. I follow, trying not to step on the broken coffee cup pieces scattered across the floor that probably costs more per square foot than my apartment. Hello, April. Dad calls toward the living room. Come say hello to your father. The silence that follows is deafening. Then we hear rapid footsteps. And April appears at the top of the grand staircase wearing designer loungewear that probably costs more than my monthly car payment. Dad? Oh my God, what are you doing here? And why is Meggie with you? She comes down the stairs like a queen descending to deal with peasants. We told you there wasn't room for extra people this Christmas. Yes. I saw your messages, Dad says calmly. Very enlightening. But since this is my house, I figured I'd make some room. April reaches the bottom of the stairs and stops, finally registering the tension in the room. Your house? Dad, you gave us this house in the divorce. I gave it to my daughters, Dad corrects. Both of them. Seems like one of them got forgotten in the gift-giving. Mom has been standing frozen by the door this whole time, but now she seems to snap back to reality. Mike, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We just meant that we already had plans. Oh, I understand perfectly, Dad says. That's why I brought help. On cue, Robert appears in the doorway, having finished with the signs. He surveys the broken coffee cup, the expensive decor, the obvious family tension, and maintains his professional demeanor like the seasoned diplomat he is. Ladies, he says pleasantly, I'm Robert Chen, Patterson Real Estate. Your ex-husband has asked me to prepare this property for immediate sale. Now April and Mom both look genuinely panicked. Sale? April's voice goes up an octave. Dad, you can't sell our house. Actually, I can, Dad says, settling into the living room like he owns the place. Which, let's face it, he does. It's my house, my mortgage, my property taxes. I've been generous enough to let you live here, but generosity has an expiration date. Mom sinks onto the white leather couch that I remember being forbidden to sit on as a teenager. She looks like she's aged 5 years in 5 minutes. Mike, please, let's discuss this privately. The children don't need to be involved in adult decisions. The children? I can't help but laugh. Mom, I'm 26 and April's 23. We're not children, and April's involvement in this is exactly the problem. April whirls around to face me, her designer pajamas fluttering dramatically. This is your fault, isn't it? You came here and filled Dad's head with lies about us. Actually, I say, keeping my voice level, I didn't have to say much. The numbers speak for themselves. Dad pulls out his phone and scrolls to something. Robert, while you're here, would you like to hear about the monthly expenses for this property, just so you can factor them into the listing price? Dad, stop, April says, but her voice has lost its imperious tone. Mortgage, $4,000 a month. Property taxes, $1,800. Utilities, $600. Maintenance and landscaping, $800. Monthly allowance for household expenses, $3,000. Dad looks up from his phone. That's $10,200 a month before we even get to credit card bills. Robert whistles low. That's a significant monthly outlay. It gets better, Dad continues. April's credit cards last month, $8,000. Your mother's, $4,000. That's $22,000 in 1 month to maintain a lifestyle for 2 people who contribute exactly nothing to their own support. We contribute, April protests. I manage the household. I coordinate with the staff. You spend money, Dad says flatly. That's not contribution. That's consumption. Mom finally finds her voice. Mike, we had an agreement. After the divorce, you said we'd be taken care of. I said my daughters would be taken care of. Plural. Both of them. Dad's voice gets colder. But one of my daughters has been working 60-hour weeks and paying her own rent, while the other has been treating my credit cards like an unlimited shopping spree. I watch this exchange feeling like I'm seeing my family clearly for the first time. Mom's desperation isn't about losing a home. It's about losing a lifestyle she never earned. April's anger isn't about being displaced. It's about being exposed. So here's what's going to happen, Dad continues. Robert is going to list this house. You have 60 days to find alternative living arrangements. April, I've already secured you a 1-bedroom apartment downtown. The rent is paid for 6 months to give you time to find employment. Employment? April looks like he just suggested she become a circus performer. Dad, I don't have a job. I don't have experience. What am I supposed to do? Learn, Dad says simply. The same thing Maggie did when she graduated college. Mom stands up abruptly, pacing toward the window where Robert's for sale signs are visible from inside. This is cruel, Mike. We're family. Are we? Dad asks. Because family doesn't tell one daughter there's no room while spending the other's inheritance on designer handbags. The word inheritance hits the room like a bomb. April and Mom both freeze. What inheritance? April asks slowly. Dad looks at me, then back at them. The inheritance that's been paying for this lifestyle for 5 years. Money that belongs to both my daughters, not just the one who stayed close enough to spend it. I can see the mathematical reality dawning on their faces. Every dollar they've spent has been a dollar that wouldn't go to me. Every expensive dinner, every shopping spree, every frivolous purchase has come at my expense. You're cutting us off? Mom asks, her voice barely audible. I'm leveling the playing field, Dad says. Maggie never asked me for money because she never needed it. You've been asking for money because you've never tried not needing it. It's time for that to change. Robert, who's been taking notes this entire time, clears his throat diplomatically. I'll need about an hour to photograph the property for the listing. If it's easier, I can come back when... No, Dad says. Do it now. Christmas is the perfect time for new beginnings. What do you think will happen next? Will they accept this reality check or fight back? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Robert tactfully retreats to photograph the exterior while the rest of us engage in what I'm generously calling a family discussion. Though discussion implies some level of two-way communication, and this feels more like watching April and Mom realize their financial fairy tale is ending. You can't just throw us out on the street, April says, but her voice lacks conviction. She knows Dad well enough to recognize when his mind is made up. I'm not throwing you anywhere, Dad replies calmly. I'm offering you an apartment and 6 months of rent. That's more notice and assistance than most landlords provide. 6 months to do what? Mom asks. Mike, I haven't worked in 15 years. Who's going to hire a 52-year-old woman with no recent experience? The same people who hire other 52-year-old women who need jobs, I say. Retail, customer service, administration. There are options if you're willing to consider them. April turns on me with genuine fury. Easy for you to say. You got to start your career right out of college. We've been living a completely different life. A life funded by Dad's money while I built my own, I point out. I didn't get to start my career because I was privileged. I got to start my career because I earned a degree and applied for jobs. Girls. Dad intervenes before this can escalate further. This isn't about comparing your paths. It's about creating sustainable futures for both of you. Sustainable? Mom laughs bitterly. Mike, you're worth millions. Supporting us isn't exactly a financial hardship. It's not about the money, Scarlett. It's about what the money represents. Dad sits forward, his expression serious. I've been enabling a dynamic where one daughter feels guilty for being successful while the other two feel entitled to luxury they didn't earn. That's not healthy for anyone. Robert knocks and enters, camera bag slung over his shoulder. Sorry to interrupt, I've got the exterior shots. Mind if I photograph the interior now? Please, Dad says. Start with the main floor. Robert begins photographing the living room, and I can see Mom and April watching him work with growing distress. Each flash of his camera is another step toward their displacement. Dad? April tries a different approach, her voice softer, more pleading. Can't we work something out? Some kind of compromise? I'm listening, Dad says. What if we downsized, found somewhere smaller but still together, and maybe we could get part-time jobs, contribute something? I have to give April credit. Under pressure, she's capable of more rational thought than I expected. Dad considers this. Where were you thinking? There's a nice condo complex about 10 minutes from here. 2-bedroom units, much more reasonable. How much more reasonable? Dad asks. Maybe $2,000 a month instead of $4? I watched Dad do mental math. $2,000 for housing plus reduced but still substantial living expenses, plus whatever they'd earn from part-time work. It would still represent a significant lifestyle change but wouldn't require complete independence. And jobs? Dad presses. Real jobs, not token positions to make this conversation easier. Mom and April exchange glances. Real jobs. Mom agrees reluctantly. Meggie? Dad turns to me. What do you think? I'm surprised he's asking my opinion, but I appreciate it. I think it's a step in the right direction, but there need to be clear boundaries and consequences if the agreement breaks down. Such as, no credit cards with access to your accounts. Fixed monthly support that doesn't increase for emergencies or special requests, and if they fall back into old spending patterns, the support ends entirely. April starts to object, but Mom places a warning hand on her arm. Those terms are non-negotiable, I continue. Dad's been generous for 5 years. That generosity got taken for granted. This is their chance to prove they can be responsible with a second chance. Dad nods slowly. I can live with that arrangement. Robert, hold off on the listing for now, but keep the photos ready. Robert packs up his camera efficiently. I'll prepare the listing materials and keep them on standby. Give me a call when you know for certain. After he leaves, the 4 of us sit in silence for a few moments. The Christmas tree lights blink cheerfully in the corner, completely oblivious to the fact that this might be the last Christmas this family spends in this house. There's one more condition, Dad says finally. Here it comes. I can sense the other shoe preparing to drop. Meggie stays in town, permanently. All 3 of us turn to stare at him. Dad, I start. My job is in Denver. My life is in Denver. Your life could be here, he says quietly. I'm getting older, Meggie. This business empire I built, it needs someone to take it over eventually. Someone I trust. Someone with intelligence and work ethic and integrity. The room goes completely silent. April looks like she's been slapped, and Mom appears to be holding her breath. You want me to take over the business? I ask. I want you to consider it. Work with me for a year, learn the operation, see if it's something you'd want to inherit. And there it is. The real inheritance discussion that April was worried about. Not just money, but the actual family legacy. The words hang in the air like expensive perfume, sweet and overwhelming. April's face cycles through emotions so quickly I can't track them all. Shock, anger, betrayal, desperate calculation. Mom just looks defeated. The business? April's voice comes out strangled. Dad, I'm family too. You are family, Dad says gently. But running a multi-million-dollar real estate development company requires experience, education, and work ethic. It's not something you inherit just by existing. I could learn, April says desperately. I could go back to school, get experience. Could you? Dad asks, and his tone isn't cruel, just realistic. April, you've never held a job for more than 3 weeks. You dropped out of college twice. You spend money like it's unlimited, because for you, it has been. Those aren't leadership qualities. I watch my sister's face crumple as she confronts the truth about herself, probably for the first time in her life. It's painful to witness, but also long overdue. Maggie has been managing complex projects, working with clients, handling budgets and deadlines for 4 years, Dad continues. She understands business because she's been doing business. But she doesn't know real estate, April protests weakly. Skills can be taught, I say quietly. Work ethic can't. Mom finally speaks up. So that's it? April and I get a tiny apartment and an allowance while Maggie gets everything? Maggie gets the opportunity to earn everything, Dad corrects. There's a difference. And honestly, there is. He's not just handing me the keys to his empire. He's asking me to prove I deserve them. The distinction matters, especially to someone who's spent her entire adult life proving herself. I haven't said yes yet, I point out. Dad, this is a huge decision. My career in Denver, my friends, my life there. I know, Dad says. I'm not asking for an answer today. I'm asking you to think about it. Come work with me for a year. If you hate it or if it's not right, you go back to Denver with my blessing and we'll figure out succession planning differently. And if I like it, then we start transitioning ownership. Gradually, with proper legal structure, but with the goal of me retiring to that painting hobby I mentioned and you taking over. April stands up abruptly and walks to the window, staring out at Robert's for sale signs with her arms crossed. This is unbelievable. Maggie disappears for years, shows up for one Christmas, and suddenly she's the heir apparent. April, Mom says quietly. Maybe that's not entirely fair. April spins around. Not fair? Mom, she abandoned us. She chose her career over family. No, I say, standing up myself. I chose independence over dependency. I chose building something myself over having something given to me. Those weren't rejections of family. They were attempts to become someone worthy of family respect. You think we don't respect you? Mom asks. I look at her steadily. Mom, less than 24 hours ago, you told me there was no room for me in this house. How exactly should I interpret that? The silence that follows is answer enough. Dad stands and moves toward the Christmas tree, touching one of the expensive ornaments. You know what I realized last night? I've been so focused on trying to keep this family financially comfortable that I forgot to keep it emotionally healthy. He turns to face us. Maggie, you've been carrying guilt about not being present enough. April, you've been living without purpose or direction. Scarlett, you've been managing relationships instead of building them. And I've been writing checks instead of addressing problems. So this is your solution? April asks. Blow up everyone's life and start over? This is my solution to create accountability, Dad says. Maggie earns her inheritance by proving she can handle responsibility. You earn your independence by proving you can support yourselves. And I earn my retirement by ensuring the family legacy is in capable hands. I find myself nodding slowly. There's logic to his plan, even if the execution is dramatic. What about the house? I ask. If I stay, where would I live? You could live here, Dad offers. It's as much your house as theirs. April makes a noise of protest, but I shake my head. No. If I'm staying to work with you, I want to be close to you. Somewhere smaller, more manageable. This place, I gesture around the grand living room. This place represents old dynamics. I'd rather start fresh. Dad smiles. There's a house 2 streets over from mine. 4 bedrooms, nice view, reasonable maintenance. It's been on the market for months because the price point is awkward. Too expensive for most families. Not impressive enough for status seekers. Perfect for someone who wants comfort without pretension. I finish. Exactly. April walks back over to us, her expression resolute. Fine. If this is how it's going to be, then this is how it's going to be. But I want it on record that I think this is unfair and manipulative. Noted, Dad says calmly. Your feelings are valid, April. The consequences remain the same. When do you need an answer? I ask Dad. Take the rest of the holidays. New Year's Day, we'll talk specifics. As we prepare to leave, I catch sight of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman looking back at me doesn't look like the guilty, overlooked daughter who flew in yesterday. She looks like someone with options, someone with value, someone with a future that isn't dependent on anyone else's approval. It's a good look. The week between Christmas and New Year passes in a blur of house hunting, business meetings, and the strangest family bonding experience of my adult life. Dad and I spend our days looking at properties and our evenings talking about the real estate development business over Chinese takeout and expensive wine. The key, Dad explains over mushu pork, is understanding that we're not just building buildings, we're creating communities. Every project has to improve the neighborhood, not just occupy space in it. I take notes on legal pads, asking questions about zoning laws, construction timelines, financing structures. It's fascinating work, more complex and creative than I expected. Each development project is like a massive puzzle with pieces involving city planning, environmental impact, market research, and human psychology. Why sustainable development? I asked during a site visit to one of his current projects. Because it's the future, Dad says simply. 20 years from now, buildings that aren't energy efficient and environmentally responsible won't be competitive. We're not building for today's market. We're building for the market our children will inherit. The business philosophy resonates with me. It's long-term thinking, legacy building, creating something that matters beyond immediate profit. My consulting work in Denver is intellectually satisfying, but ultimately temporary. These buildings Dad's company creates will be here for generations. Meanwhile, April and Mom are apartment hunting with a determination born of necessity. They've found a 2-bedroom condo in a nice complex, and April has actually applied for jobs at 3 different retailers. The transformation is remarkable to witness. I never realized how expensive everything is when you're paying for it yourself, April admits during one of our awkward family dinners at Dad's house. Like, I knew numbers, but I didn't understand what they meant. It's a different kind of math, I agree. When it's your money, you calculate differently. Mom has been quieter, more introspective. She's applied for administrative positions at medical offices and law firms, emphasizing her organizational skills from managing the household. It's humbling work for someone who hasn't been employed in 15 years, but she's approaching it with more dignity than I expected. I've been thinking about what you said, she tells me over coffee on New Year's Eve morning, about us making you feel unwelcome. You were right. I set down my coffee cup, surprised by her directness. We got comfortable with you being gone because it was easier, she continues. You were successful and independent, so we didn't have to worry about you. But that meant we also didn't have to include you. Mom? No, let me finish. April needed so much attention, and I needed to feel needed by someone. You never needed us, so we stopped trying to be needed by you. She looks directly at me. That was our failing, not yours. It's the most honest conversation we've had in years, maybe ever. I did need you, I say quietly, just not financially. I needed to feel like I mattered to you beyond birthday cards and Christmas gifts. You do matter. You've always mattered. Mom reaches across the table and takes my hand. I hope it's not too late to show you that. That evening, Dad and I sit in his living room watching the ball drop on television. April and Mom are at their new apartment, probably dealing with the reality of cooking their own New Year's dinner instead of having it catered. So, Dad says during a commercial break, decision time. What's it going to be, Meggie? I've been thinking about this constantly for a week. Denver represents security, independence, familiar challenges. Staying here means uncertainty, family complications, learning an entirely new industry. It also means the chance to build something significant with someone I trust and respect. I have conditions, I say. Dad grins. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. I want equal partnership within 5 years, not just inheritance planning. I want to implement sustainability standards across all projects. And I want to establish a scholarship program for first-generation college students pursuing business or engineering degrees. Done, and done, Dad says without hesitation. Anything else? I want April included in the business at some level if she proves herself capable. Not handed a position, but given opportunities to earn one. Dad raises an eyebrow. After everything she put you through? Because of everything she put me through, I say. She needs purpose, Dad. Structure. Accountability. Working for you could provide all 3 if she's willing to start at the bottom and work her way up. And if she's not willing, then at least we offered. But I think she might surprise us. Dad extends his hand. Partners? I shake it firmly. Partners. As the countdown to midnight begins on television, I think about how much has changed in 1 week. Last Sunday, I was the overlooked daughter flying home to beg for inclusion in a family that didn't particularly want me. Tonight, I'm an equal partner in a multi-million-dollar business with a father who finally sees me as an asset rather than an obligation. 10, 9, 8. You know what the best part of this arrangement is? Dad asks over the countdown. What's that? 7, 6, 5. I finally get to retire to that painting hobby I mentioned, knowing the business is in hands I trust completely. 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year, Dad. Happy New Year, partner. 6 months later, I'm standing in the conference room of Patterson Development, looking at architectural plans for our largest project ever, a mixed-use development that will include affordable housing, retail space, and a community center with solar panels and rainwater collection systems. April sits across from me, her hair pulled back in a professional ponytail, taking notes on zoning requirements. She started as a receptionist in February, proved herself reliable, and is now our project coordination assistant. The transformation isn't complete, but it's real. The City Planning Committee wants to see traffic impact studies, she says, consulting her tablet. I've scheduled meetings with 3 different traffic engineering firms for next week. Good thinking, I say, and mean it. April's attention to detail has improved dramatically when she has actual responsibilities. Mom got a job managing the front office at a pediatric clinic and discovered she's excellent at dealing with anxious parents and crying children. She's found purpose in work for the first time in her adult life, and it shows in her posture, her confidence, her conversations. Dad officially retired last month with a ceremony that made the local business journal. He's taking painting classes and talking about traveling to Europe, but mostly he's just happy. The stress lines around his eyes have disappeared, and he laughs more often. The sustainability consultant wants to add geothermal heating to the community center. April continues, reading from her notes. It increases upfront costs by 12% but reduces long-term operating expenses by 30%. Approve it, I say immediately. We're building for the long term. This has become my standard response to sustainability upgrades. Dad's philosophy about building for the future has become mine, expanded to include not just environmental responsibility, but social impact. Every project we take on now has to answer the question, does this make the community better? My phone buzzes with a text from Dad. Lunch at the usual place? I have news. I gather my things and head out, leaving April to continue reviewing permit applications. The usual place is a small cafe near his house where the owner knows our orders and doesn't mind Dad spending 2 hours over coffee discussing business philosophy. You look happy, I tell him as I slide into our regular booth. I am happy, he says, grinning like someone with a secret. You know that house in Portugal I've been talking about? The one you've looked at online about 100 times? I bought it yesterday. I nearly choke on my iced tea. You bought a house in Portugal? Dad, that's incredible. 6 months ago, I was a workaholic whose family barely spoke to him, Dad says, his eyes bright with excitement. Now I have a daughter I'm proud to work with, a business legacy in capable hands, and enough freedom to buy a house in Europe on impulse. When do you leave? Next month. For 6 weeks initially, then we'll see. I might split time between here and there. Or I might decide I love Portuguese wine too much to come back. The idea of Dad as a European expat is so wonderfully absurd that I start laughing. Send me pictures of everything, and don't let any Portuguese women break your heart. I'll be too busy painting terrible landscapes and learning to make authentic pastel de nata, he says. But speaking of hearts, how are things with that lawyer you've been seeing? James is the environmental attorney I met through work, someone who shares my passion for sustainable development and Dad's appreciation for expensive wine. We've been dating for 3 months, and it's the first relationship I've had that doesn't require me to apologize for my ambition or explain why I work so much. Things are good, I say. Really good. Good enough to bring him to April's birthday dinner next week? April's birthday. A year ago, I would have sent a card from Denver and felt guilty about not being present. This year, I'm organizing the dinner and genuinely excited to celebrate with her. I think so. As long as she promises not to interrogate him about his intentions. She's protective of you now, Dad says with amusement. It's one of the more unexpected developments in this whole family transformation. He's right. April and I have developed something that resembles an actual sisterly relationship. We work well together, we laugh at each other's jokes, and she's stopped seeing me as competition for parental attention. Probably because there's enough attention to go around now that everyone has their own life and purpose. I never thanked you properly, I tell Dad as we finish lunch. For what? For fighting for me. For seeing that I mattered when I couldn't see it myself. Dad reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. Maggie, you never needed me to fight for you. You just needed me to stop fighting against you. What do you mean? For years, I enabled a dynamic where your success was somehow threatening to the rest of the family. Your independence made April's dependence look worse. Your achievements made my financial support of them look like enablement instead of love. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. I should have celebrated your strength instead of compensating for everyone else's weakness. It's a profound insight, and probably true. The family dysfunction wasn't just about favoritism or money. It was about a system where my self-sufficiency was treated as abandonment, rather than accomplishment. Well, I say, we figured it out eventually. We did, and now I get to retire knowing that my life's work will continue making communities better. My daughters have found their purposes, and my ex-wife has discovered she's capable of more than she ever imagined. As we walk back to our cars, I think about the Christmas Eve text that started this whole transformation. Cancel that idea. There's no room for one more person here. They were wrong. Of course, there was room. There's always been room. The question was never about space. It was about value, about worth, about whether I mattered enough to make room for. Now I know I do. Not because Dad gave me a business, or because April finally accepts me, or because Mom apologizes for years of emotional neglect. I matter because I make things better wherever I am. I matter because I build instead of consume, because I create value instead of just inheriting it, because I show up for people who show up for me. It took a Christmas rejection to teach me that lesson, but now that I've learned it, I'll never forget it again. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more real-life family drama that proves it's never too late to rewrite your story. Sometimes the best families are the ones we build on mutual respect rather than obligation.